Criticom is from a very specific era in gaming. Public internet was still young in 1995, so investigative journalism wasn't really a thing for video games yet. Never mind the lack of social media, meaning even when such information was found and reported on, it wasn't very widespread. You either had to be a part of an online community that discussed such things in a time where that wasn't really centralized, or pick up a gaming magazine and read reviews from people with names like Sushi X and ESAC. So, if a game was, say, incredibly bad, you might not know it before making a purchase. It was also still thoroughly in the Wild West of 3D gaming, and you saw a lot more titles willing to experiment on untested concepts. And sometimes those brave forays into the unknown were rife with bad decisions. We have this today with indie devs, but that was basically unheard of in the public consciousness before the rise of Steam. Sometimes taking a chance on a game, you got cult gems like Vib Ribbon, and sometimes you got well-intentioned flops like Quest 64, or... well... I'm Eric J. Chucky, and welcome to Violent Profiles, where we discuss obscure fighting games and the rosters that define them. It's easy to dismiss this game as bad. Terrible, even. And it is. Controls are sticky and awkward to the extent that landing an ordinary attack seems next to impossible. The computer is smart enough that the opponent is likely to block it, which does no chip damage, and respond with a perfect counterattack, if it's anywhere near connecting at all. Sometimes, for reasons I am not fully aware of, my character's life bar refills. When I jump, I careen into the sky, so aerial offense is a matter of luck more than timing. As this is a 3D game, you can strafe roll, but it moves you less than a single step forward or backward. Sometimes you don't move the direction you're facing, and your guess as to why is as good as mine. You might think it's the camera angle that's the culprit, but nope, sometimes it happens when the camera hasn't moved at all. This is more of a preference thing, but a lot of the special moves require you to hold down R1 or R2 and push a directional button, but not all. If you thought trying to remember which button is jump between 3 different first-person shooters was bad, try having your typical fighting game controls swapped for Smash Brothers, but backwards. How did this happen? Well, the short version is that everybody involved tried to rush it to completion by Christmas of '95 with less than 6 months of development time. And they did. It was even considered a commercial success and was ported to the Saturn over a year later, which much of this footage is from. Not that you can tell. This one's rough, guys. Try not to watch it on full screen. In fact, the smaller the screen, the better. Can you imagine this thing being released by a major publisher today? Gamers would explode. Review bomb the title on every website they could find, try to convince everyone in screaming distance that it sucks, and threaten death to the voice actors for some reason. But back then, we just kinda had to deal with it. Some of us even convinced ourselves that we liked it, and despite its obvious glaring flaws, it's actually not that hard to do. There are some very cool, ambitious ideas in here. You play the tournament ladder and face off against a souped-up version of yourself with more special attacks at the end, which you inherit upon defeating them before climbing the ladder again. At the end of your third attempt, you face the final boss of the game. That's one hell of a way to encourage replay and get you accustomed to the various special moves your character can perform. Criticom is also the first game in Violent Profiles that I've never played, and even though I have no nostalgia for it, I think it's important to look at games beyond my own personal history and catalog as many of the incredible character concepts out there as I can get my hands on. So, let's get to the plot. On the planet Hyperia dwell 2 clans, the Nizam and the Zerai. Both clans decide they're the chosen ones due to possessing an ancient relic that bestows great power, but not the wisdom to use it. A figure known as the Emperor leads them on a galactic conquest using whatever means necessary to install their rule in each system, including outright genocide. Eventually, they're victorious, and it looks like everything will be at peace, but just after the dying Emperor passes the relic on to his heirs, its protectors are killed and the relic is stolen. In truth, it's the Emperor who stole the relic after faking his death. That's the Thanos-looking fella right there. Not believing anyone to be worthy of its power. He had the relic, but decided to give the relic away to his heirs, but he didn't think they were worthy, so he faked his own death to steal the relic, which was his in the first place? Is the Emperor Vince McMahon? Regardless, each fighter is drawn into the challenge of recovering the relic, discovering the truth, and ultimately proving the Emperor wrong. Dayton Trent is our first playable character.
A ruthless mercenary who trusts no one and prefers to work alone.
This game was made in 1995, I don't know if I made that clear. The Chosen Ones hired Dayton to find the stolen relic, though after getting the intel, his plan is to sell it to the highest bidder and retire from the business, perhaps taking up fishing. Trent shoots lasers from his vacuum nozzle attachment, is pretty handy with his wiggly letter F, and is also proficient at spinning uppercuts. He dresses like a cross between Duke Nukem and Dash Rendar, and is probably one of the better characters for beginners who are committed to playing Criticom. Win the game with him, and Dayton throws the relic at some guy, the highest bidder I would assume, and then drives off into the desert on his tailpipe chimera. That's right, fully rendered, narrated intro cutscenes, and these are the kind of endings we're dealing with. Ugh. Next is Delara of the Zerai clan, whose ideology rejects all technology, devoting themselves to the skill and honor of the true warrior, which I think means she only fights people 1v1 in the river next to Baron. While defending the relic from the thief, she was knocked out and her counterpart from the Nizam clan was killed. This dishonor caused her to pursue vengeance on the person who stole the relic, and with it, her destiny as one of its shepherds. Delara wields a sword and shield, dresses like a pirate from a screensaver in 1992, and her butt is always out. If you use her blade to best your opponents and supersede the Emperor, Delara puts the relic back on the pedestal. I feel like we backslid on ending quality into the 3D era. I wanted to give it the benefit of the doubt and speculate that it was just my preference for pixels showing, but if you look at the difference between a lot of late SNES game entries compared to early PlayStation ones, well, even Dancing Zangief is more of a satisfying conclusion than this. At least the intros are lively, and that's the thing that's going to sell you on playing more of the game and exploring its characters. In service to that, let's talk about Exene Dulate, a woman born on a planet in the state of constant war. Exene was basically raised by the military, but instead of it forging her into a killing machine, it made her sick at the waste of constant battle. She left her home planet in search of an answer, and hearing about the relic, was driven to find it in hopes of eradicating all war back home. She wields Twin Tonfa, has sort of a stun gun and a sick flip kick that can hit opponents behind her. She kinda reminds me of Demi Moore in that movie you can't talk about around Will Smith, with the most impressive set of polygonal pyramids this side of Lara Croft. Use Exene to claim the relic and you'll get to watch her in all her space-helmeted glory, heading back home for... Oh god, she's going back! She's going home! All this time it was... We finally really did it! Earth was the war planet. Damn you! Damn you all to hell! No, but for real, that's a decent twist and the most interesting ending we've gotten to enjoy thus far. Moving on, let's talk about Gorm, one of the last survivors of the peaceful people known as the Dorlons. They believe the relic is the birthstone of their race, and their king thinks Gorm is the prophesied champion who will rise to reclaim it. I don't know what a birthstone is to the Dorlons, but here on Earth it's just a pretty rock some jeweler's guild told me I should buy based on the month I was born. I hope it's more significant than that. This one-man right stuff walk seems really wasted on retrieving fodder for novelty pendants and earrings. If you're wondering what kind of epic resolution this Masters of the Universe reject and his spear can achieve, you will perhaps be unsurprised to find out that he brings the relic back to his home planet, hands it to the king, and his grateful people cheer. I think. I don't speak Dorlon. Dorlanese? Dorlanish? Next up is Sid, the sentient integrated droid, a killing machine and the result of an experiment gone haywire. They've been traveling the galaxy destroying all carbon-based life forms, most recently the Wampas of Hoth, which brings them to the current stage of battle. While the other characters are questing for the relic, Sid wants only to kill. Sid has missiles and some decent range to their attacks, which meant I was doing pretty well just button mashing until I pressed left on my controller, and Sid ran to the right of the screen and straight off the edge. Probably my favorite character in the game, 10 out of 10. After Sid myrtleizes the Emperor for being based on carbon, they recover the relic on a storm planet where giant faces glare at you from all angles, and then eat it over their shoulder and wander off. Sid is my hero. Part of the reason I didn't experience a lot of these early PlayStation entries is because my mom picked up a copy of Electronic Gaming Monthly and was duped by their April Fool's joke about a nude code in Tomb Raider, so it wasn't until my 14th birthday in 1999 that she felt I was mature enough to enjoy the console responsibly. I don't remember what eventually convinced her, and I sure as hell didn't find out about the code being a hoax until I was well into adulthood. But if she had seen Demonica, it would have set the clock back another 5 years. This hooved woman in 1995's hottest Frank Frazetta swimwear shoots fireballs and is described by the game itself as being mysterious. Our narrator also lets us know that nobody is sure why she's here. Thankfully, the manual offers us more insight and suggests that there is an ancient stone similar to the relic in her own dimension, and obtaining both will grant her untold power over evil and darkness, which is probably bad. Claw your way to the top with Demonica, and the camera goes Michael Bay around her before she turns into... this thing. So that can't be good. Sonor Knezam is what you might expect of an alien, the little gray man or Duros model wearing Cable's costume o' many pockets. His brother was one of the guardians of the relic and was supposed to become the next emperor, but Sonark I guess was there and sneaked in to murk his brother and jump the line. This is while the emperor was enacting his fake my own death to steal the relic back plan, like literally these things happened in the same room at the same time. Sonor primarily attacks with wiggly fingers and roundhouse kicks, and you laugh, but those wiggly fingers are fast, and that counts for a lot in this stupid, unresponsive cinderblock of a game. I'm told he gets plasma sickles later, but if you thought I was dedicated enough to play this game to the point that I mess with these characters in their higher level forms, you have not been paying attention to this video. Beat the game with him and we're treated to something Criticom's legal team can prove is definitely not the opening to A New Hope. This is followed by some footage of a space war. I'm not sure that Sonor is in charge of the ship there, but I have to imagine he's up the chain of command somewhere. Otherwise, this would just be a pointless, disconnected ending, and they wouldn't do that, would they?
They would.
Finally, we have Genji, a space cyborg ninja whose people were killed during all the wars the Chosen Ones did to make the peace that lasted for about 20 minutes. She's dedicated her life to training her body and mind to seek vengeance, finally taking her moment to destroy the relic after it was stolen and is now, presumably, easier to get to. I don't know, it doesn't sound like great logic to me personally, but I'm not Genji. She fights about how you'd expect a ninja to fight if you trap them in infinite pudding, with cool claw weapons and a lot of agile kicks. Genji was the first character I realized I could use passwords to call up their level 3 forms on, and I decided to give it a try to see if the unlocked powers made the game any better. They did not, so I didn't bother trying anyone else. You might think that's not very thorough of me, and you would be fully correct. In Genji's ending, a DeviantArt OC hybrid of Doomguy and Wolverine drops the relic into a bubbling sea of ecto-cooler. I know this is just level 3 Genji, but this game is so empty sometimes I don't even have much to mock, so I mash two popular characters together and you chuckle and hit the like button. It's kind of our thing. It's a shame the interesting ideas attempted in Criticom ended up in Criticom. Characters evolving as they fought, the sci-fi setting as opposed to the more typical modern-day martial arts tournament, and even the specific characters and plotlines they chose to explore could have all been really fun in a better format. A Criticom movie or miniseries with Dayton and Exene at the center might have been fun to watch, especially if it was made with the same Dune-like bent toward enigmatic presentation we see in cutscenes here. It's so easy to criticize.
Fun too.
But I prefer to try to find the beauty in a flawed thing. I fully believe Criticom would have been a better game with more development time, which is true of basically every video game. And I can see the shimmering diamonds hiding deep, deep in the rough of what we've got. That said, there is hope. I say hope in quotation marks because I know better, but there were 2 more fighting games by Kronos Digital Entertainment, Dark Rift and Cardinal Sin. We'll be exploring both eventually, and who knows? Maybe they'll succeed at keeping the promise of what Criticom attempted. But let's not get too excited. Next time on Violent Profiles, why don't we take a look at something a little more modern? Let's say from 2016-ish. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and support us on Patreon at the $10 tier to get new episodes a month early. Shout out to all the names currently on screen for doing exactly that. Until next time, white out.